Jake Morrison stood near the edge of the floating palace, watching the alien guests move through the grand hall. He wore his military uniform with pride, even though tonight he was just here to keep watch. The Earth Defense Coalition had sent him and his team to this water world called Aqualis Prime. Their job was simple: protect the human diplomats and stay out of trouble. The palace belonged to the Valorians, a race of tall reptilian aliens who ruled over dozens of star systems. They walked on two legs like humans, but their skin had scales that shimmered green and gold under the lights. Their eyes were cold and calculating, always watching and judging everything around them. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. Humans and Valorians were signing a new trade agreement. Music played, strange alien food was served on floating trays, and everyone pretended to be friendly. Jake found it all boring. He preferred being out in the field, doing real work, not standing around in fancy rooms. His radio crackled. "Morrison, status report," came the voice of his commander, Captain Dan Foster. "All quiet here, sir," Jake replied. "Just a bunch of aliens eating weird food and talking about cargo routes. Stay alert. We're guests here, and the Valorians don't forgive mistakes." Jake nodded even though his commander couldn't see him. He understood. First contact with a new alien race was always delicate. One wrong move could start a war. The crowd suddenly shifted, moving toward the large viewing platform that extended out over the ocean. Jake followed, curious about what had caught everyone's attention. Through the mass of bodies, he saw her, Princess Selethar, daughter of the Valorian Emperor. She stood tall and proud, her scales darker than the others, almost black with streaks of silver. She wore elaborate robes that marked her royal status. Next to her sat a massive creature that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. It looked like a lion from Earth, but bigger and stranger. It had 6 legs instead of 4, and its mane was pure gold, shining like metal in the light. Its eyes were bright blue, almost glowing. Heavy chains decorated with jewels hung around its neck and legs. The creature sat perfectly still, trained to behave. "Behold my Ravkor," Princess Selethar announced to the crowd. Her voice was cold and sharp. "A rare beast from the jungle worlds of the Outer Rim. It has served as my pet for 3 cycles." The crowd murmured in appreciation. Some aliens took pictures with their devices. The princess seemed pleased with the attention. Then something went wrong. A servant carrying a tray of drinks stumbled near the viewing platform. The tray clattered to the floor with a loud crash. The sudden noise startled the Ravkor. The creature jumped to its feet, trying to back away from the sound, but the heavy chains tangled around its legs. The Ravkor lost its balance and fell sideways, crashing through the safety railing. Jake watched in horror as the massive creature tumbled over the edge, falling 30 feet down into the dark ocean below. He ran to the edge and looked down. The Ravkor was thrashing in the water, trying to swim, but the heavy chains were pulling it down. Its golden head kept dipping below the surface. The creature was drowning. Jake looked at Princess Selethar, expecting her to do something. She walked to the broken railing and stared down at her pet without any emotion on her face. "It has failed me," she said simply. "A creature that cannot swim has no value on a water world. Let the ocean take it." The other Valorians nodded in agreement. Some even seemed bored by the whole situation. They started turning away, going back to their conversations and drinks. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're just going to let it die?" he asked, stepping toward the princess. She turned her cold eyes on him. "It is property, human. Broken property. Why would I waste effort saving it?" "Because it's alive," Jake said, his voice rising. "It's scared and drowning, and you put those chains on it in the first place. Your emotions cloud your judgment," Princess Selethar replied. "This is why your species will always be inferior to ours. You feel too much." Jake looked down at the water again. The Ravkor was barely keeping its head up now. Its movements were getting weaker. In another minute, it would be gone. Captain Foster's voice came through his radio. Morrison, stand down. Do not interfere with alien customs. That's an order. No. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his orders, about diplomacy, about not starting an incident. Then he thought about that creature dying alone in the cold water. Because its owner didn't care, he made his choice. Jake pulled off his uniform jacket and kicked off his boots. The other humans in the crowd started shouting at him to stop. The Valorians watched with confusion and disgust. Princess Selathar's eyes went wide. You dishonor yourself, human, she said. Jake didn't answer. He climbed onto the broken railing and dove into the ocean below. The water was freezing cold. It shocked his system as he went under. But Jake forced himself to focus. He had trained for water rescues in the military. He could do this. He swam hard toward the struggling Ravkor. The creature saw him coming and thrashed even more, scared of this strange human in the water. Jake had to dodge a flailing paw that could have knocked him unconscious. Easy, easy, Jake said, even though he knew the creature couldn't understand him. I'm trying to help. He grabbed onto the chains around the Ravkor's neck. The weight immediately tried to pull him down too. Jake took a deep breath and dove under, pulling his combat knife from his belt. The chains were thick and decorated with jewels, but the links were just metal. He started cutting. His lungs burned. The Ravkor was still moving, making it hard to work. Jake sawed through one chain, then another. The creature started rising slightly as the weight came off. Jake surfaced, gasping for air. The Ravkor's head came up too, coughing and sputtering. Its blue eyes locked onto Jake's face. For a moment, they just stared at each other, in the water. Then Jake dove again, cutting more chains. His arms ached, and his lungs screamed for air. But he kept working. Finally, the last chain fell away, sinking into the dark water below. The Ravkor could move freely now. Jake grabbed onto its mane and kicked hard, pulling them both toward a service platform he had spotted attached to the palace structure. It was only 20 feet away, but it felt like miles. His arms felt like lead, his legs barely moved. The Ravkor seemed to understand what he was trying to do. It started paddling with its 6 legs, helping push them toward the platform. Jake's hand hit metal. He pulled himself onto the platform, then helped guide the Ravkor up. The creature was heavy, but fear and determination gave Jake extra strength. They both collapsed on the platform, breathing hard and dripping wet. The Ravkor coughed up water, its whole body shaking. Jake lay on his back, his chest heaving. Above them, he could see faces looking down from the palace. Hundreds of aliens and humans watching what he had done. The Ravkor lifted its massive head and looked at Jake. Its blue eyes were clear and intelligent, more aware than any animal Jake had ever seen. The creature made a low sound, almost like a purr, and moved closer to Jake's side. Jake reached out with a tired hand and touched the Ravkor's wet mane. You're okay now, he whispered. I've got you. A platform lowered from above. Princess Selathar descended on it, her face impossible to read. She stepped onto the service platform and looked down at Jake and the Ravkor. You have shamed yourself, human, she said. You violated our customs to save a worthless animal. In our culture, such behavior shows weakness and poor judgment. Jake sat up slowly, water dripping from his hair. He met the princess's eyes without fear. In my culture, letting a loyal creature die shows cruelty and cowardice. I'll take the shame if that's what you call doing the right thing. The princess was silent for a long moment. The Ravkor moved even closer to Jake, pressing against his side like it was seeking protection. Very well, Princess Selathar finally said. The creature is now yours. You saved it, so you are responsible for it. May it burden you, as it has burdened me. She turned and ascended back to the palace without another word. Jake looked at the Ravkor next to him. The creature looked back, and Jake could swear he saw gratitude in those strange blue eyes. I guess you're mine now, Jake said. running his hand through the creature's wet mane. "We'll figure this out together." The Ravkor made that purring sound again and closed its eyes, finally feeling safe. Above them, the party continued. But down on that small platform, surrounded by an alien ocean on a strange world far from home, Jake Morrison had just made a decision that would change everything. Jake sat in his small quarters on the human base, watching the Ravkor sleep on a makeshift bed he had built from spare blankets and cushions. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and he still couldn't believe the creature was his responsibility now. "Leo," Jake said quietly, testing the name he had chosen. The Ravkor's ear twitched, and one blue eye opened to look at him. "Yeah, Leo. That's you now." The name felt right. Simple and strong, like the creature itself. Leo stretched all 6 of his legs and yawned, showing sharp teeth that could easily tear through metal. But when he looked at Jake, those teeth didn't seem threatening at all. Captain Foster knocked on the door before entering. He looked at Leo with concern on his face. "Morrison, we need to talk about your new friend." "What about him, sir?" Jake asked, standing at attention. "Command wants to know what you're planning to do with it. We can't keep a giant alien predator on a military base forever, and we certainly can't take it back to Earth without proper clearance." Jake looked at Leo, who was watching the conversation with intelligent eyes. "I'm keeping him, sir. I made a promise when I pulled him out of that water." Foster sighed and sat down on Jake's desk chair. "You know the Valorians are talking about what you did." Princess Selathar filed a formal complaint. "She says you insulted her honor by implying she was cruel." "She was cruel," Jake said flatly. "She left Leo to drown. Be that as it may, we're trying to build a relationship with these people. Your actions complicated things." Foster paused, then his expression softened. "But between you and me, I'm glad you did it. I saw the whole thing. That creature didn't deserve to die." Over the next few weeks, Jake learned that Leo was far more intelligent than any Earth animal. The Ravkor understood commands after hearing them only once or twice. When Jake said, "Sit," Leo sat. When Jake said, "Stay," Leo stayed. Even when Jake left the room for hours. But it was more than just obedience. Leo seemed to understand Jake's moods and emotions. When Jake was stressed after a difficult briefing, Leo would rest his massive head on Jake's lap, offering silent comfort. When Jake was happy, Leo would bounce around like a playful kitten. Despite weighing over 400 pounds, the other soldiers slowly warmed up to Leo. Corporal Lisa Hayes had been scared at first, keeping her distance and always having her hand near her weapon. But one day, she tripped during a training exercise and twisted her ankle badly. Leo ran over immediately, positioning himself next to her so she could use his body to stand up. After that, Lisa always brought him treats from the mess hall. Sergeant Ben Carter joked that Jake was running a zoo, but even he admitted Leo was useful. The Ravkor's senses were incredibly sharp. He could hear sounds no human could detect and smell things from miles away. During patrol duty, Leo would alert Jake to problems long before any scanner picked them up. The real test came during the attack on the human embassy. It happened late at night. Jake was in his quarters with Leo, going over supply reports before bed. Leo suddenly stood up, his ears pointing forward. A low growl rumbled from his chest. "What is it, boy?" Jake asked, reaching for his weapon. Leo moved to the door, his body tense. The growl grew louder. Jake trusted the Ravkor's instincts completely now. He grabbed his rifle and opened the door carefully. The hallway was empty and quiet. Too quiet. Jake tapped his radio. "This is Morrison. I think we have a problem." "Leo's acting strange." "Morrison, all systems show clear," came the response from the security station. "No alerts, no breaches. I'm telling you, something's wrong, Leo knows." Before anyone could respond, an explosion rocked the building. Alarms started screaming. Jake's radio came alive with panicked voices. "Breach in the east wall. We have hostiles inside the compound. Multiple targets, armed with plasma weapons. Someone get to the ambassador. Protect the ambassador." Jake ran toward the sound of gunfire with Leo at his side. They rounded a corner and found 3 insurgents in black armor advancing down a hallway. The attackers saw Jake and Leo and opened fire. Jake dove behind a support pillar, returning fire. Leo moved with incredible speed, darting between cover like he understood tactics. The insurgents tried to track the moving target, but Leo was too fast. One attacker made a mistake, stepping out too far to get a better shot. Leo pounced, hitting him like a missile. The insurgent went down hard, his weapon clattering away. He didn't get up. Jake took down another attacker with precise shots. The third one tried to run, but Leo cut off his escape route, forcing him back toward Jake's position. The insurgent surrendered, dropping his weapon and raising his hands. More soldiers arrived, securing the prisoners. Jake checked Leo carefully for injuries. "You okay, buddy? Did they hit you?" Leo nuzzled Jake's hand, completely calm now that the danger was over. Not a scratch on him. Captain Foster found them 10 minutes later. "Morrison, good work. Your early warning gave us crucial seconds." "How did you know?" "They were coming." Jake scratched Leo's ears. Leo knew. He sensed them before they even breached the wall. Foster looked at the Rav Corps with new respect. Maybe command was wrong. Maybe this creature is exactly what we need here. The next day brought an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Kretor, one of the senior Valorians, requested a private meeting with Jake. They met in a conference room, with Leo lying calmly at Jake's feet. Kretor stared at Leo for a long time before speaking. "We have been watching you, Sergeant Morrison. My people are confused by what we see." "What do you mean, Ambassador?" Jake asked. "The Rav Corps was worthless to Princess Selethar. It performed tricks but showed no real loyalty or intelligence. Yet with you, it is a different creature entirely. It protects you, thinks for you, acts with purpose. How did you achieve this transformation?" Jake thought about how to explain. "I didn't transform Leo. I just treated him with respect and kindness. I fed him, cared for him, spent time with him. We became partners." "Partners," Kretor repeated the word slowly, like it was foreign to him. "Valorians do not have partners. We have superiors and inferiors. We have owners and possessions. But partners? This concept is strange to us. Maybe that's the problem," Jake said carefully. "Leo didn't thrive with the princess because she only saw him as a thing to own. I see him as a friend." Kretor was quiet for a moment. "Your species has a documented trait. Our scientists call it pack bonding. Humans form emotional connections with other species more easily than any civilization we have studied. We thought this was a weakness, a flaw in your evolution. And now?" Jake asked. "Now, I wonder if we were wrong. I watched recordings of the attack. The Rav Corps fought beside you with perfect coordination. It anticipated your movements, protected your weak points, eliminated threats you could not see. This level of cooperation requires something deeper than training." Leo lifted his head and looked at Kretor with those bright blue eyes. The ambassador stared back, and something shifted in his expression. "It requires trust," Kretor said softly. "It requires love." Jake nodded. "Yeah, it does." The ambassador stood up to leave, then paused at the door. "Princess Selethar has been watching the recordings as well. She watches them repeatedly. I believe she is beginning to understand what she discarded when she abandoned this creature. Perhaps she is beginning to understand what her entire civilization has lost." After Kretor left, Jake sat alone with Leo. The Rav Corps climbed onto the couch next to him. Something he had learned was allowed in private. Jake ran his hand through Leo's golden mane. "You know what's funny, boy? I came to this world to do my job and go home. I never expected to find a friend like you." Leo made that low purring sound and rested his massive head on Jake's shoulder. The weight was comforting and warm. Private Alex Hughes stopped by later that evening. He was the young soldier Leo had protected during the attack. "Hey, Morrison. I brought Leo some meat from the kitchen. Is that okay?" "He'd love it," Jake said. "Come on in." Hughes fed Leo pieces of cooked meat, and the Ravkor ate happily from his hand. "I wanted to thank you both. When I got shot in the leg, I thought I was done. But Leo stood over me the whole time, keeping the insurgents away until the medics arrived. He saved my life. He's good at that," Jake said with a smile. After Hughes left, Jake got ready for bed. Leo had his own sleeping area now, but he always waited until Jake was settled before lying down himself. "Good night, Leo," Jake said, turning off the lights. In the darkness, he heard Leo's contented sigh. The Ravkor had found something he never had with Princess Selathar. He had found a home, and Jake had found something too. In a universe full of alien species and strange worlds, he had found a companion who would stand by him no matter what, not because of training or obligation, but because of something deeper and more powerful. He had found a friend. Outside, the moons of Aqualis Prime rose over the ocean, casting silver light through the window. Jake and Leo slept peacefully, both dreaming of the adventures still to come. Neither of them knew that their story was just beginning, or that what they had built together would soon change not just their lives, but the future of an entire alien empire. 3 months had passed since Jake rescued Leo from the ocean. Life had settled into a comfortable routine. Jake performed his duties as a soldier, and Leo accompanied him everywhere the regulations allowed. They had become a familiar sight around the human base. The soldier and his massive, golden companion. Then everything changed. Captain Foster called Jake into his office early one morning. His expression was serious. "Morrison, we received official communication from the Valorian Imperial Court. You've been summoned to Valoria Prime." Jake felt his stomach drop. "The homeworld? Why would they want me there, sir?" "Live. The request came directly from Princess Selathar. She's inviting you to attend some kind of ceremony. The official language says it's to honor your diplomatic service." Foster leaned back in his chair. "But I don't trust it." "You think it's a trap?" Jake asked. "The Valorians don't forget insults. You embarrassed the princess in front of hundreds of witnesses. You made her look cruel and heartless. People like that don't just forgive and forget." Jake thought about Leo sleeping in his quarters. "Can I refuse?" "Technically, yes. But it would damage human-Valorian relations. The diplomats are pushing hard for you to go. They say it's a chance to improve things between our species." Foster stood up and walked to the window. "I don't like it, Morrison, but the decision is yours." Jake went back to his quarters to think. Leo greeted him at the door, sensing his troubled mood immediately. The Ravkor pressed against Jake's leg, offering comfort without words. "They want us to go to Valoria Prime," Jake told Leo. "The princess's homeworld. I don't know what she wants, but it probably isn't good." Leo tilted his head, listening carefully, like he always did, when Jake talked to him. Lieutenant Kate Wilson came by an hour later. She was the intelligence officer, and Jake trusted her judgment. "I heard about the summons," she said. "I've been analyzing Princess Selathar's behavior for months. Want to know what I think?" Please," Jake said. "I don't think this is about revenge. Our analysts have been tracking social media and communication from Valoria Prime. There's a growing movement among younger Valorians questioning their traditional ways. They're asking why emotional bonds are considered weakness when humans use them so effectively." "And the princess is part of this movement?" Jake asked. "She might be leading it. Think about it. She's been studying recordings of you and Leo constantly. Ambassador Kritor told us that. She's not watching because she's angry. She's watching because she's trying to understand something her culture never taught her." Jake considered this. "So, you think the invitation is genuine?" "I think it's complicated. She might want to use you and Leo to make a political point. But that doesn't mean you're in danger." "It means you're important." Asked. After discussing it with Captain Foster and getting approval from Command, Jake decided to go. The journey to Valoria Prime would take 2 weeks aboard the Earth vessel Endeavor. Jake spent that time training with Leo, making sure they were ready for anything. The ship's crew loved Leo. He had the run of the cargo bay, which had been modified to be more comfortable for him. Crew members would visit during their breaks, bringing treats and playing with the friendly giant. Commander Steve Harris, the ship's pilot, became particularly attached to Leo. "You know, Morrison, when I first heard we were transporting a dangerous alien predator, I was worried. But this guy is just a big puppy." "Don't let him hear you call him that," Jake joked. "He has a reputation to protect." As they got closer to Valoria Prime, Jake felt more nervous. He had seen pictures of the planet, but seeing it in person was different. The world was covered in massive cities, all geometric and precise. Everything looked planned and calculated, with no room for chaos or nature. The Endeavor docked at an orbital station, and Jake and Leo were transferred to a Valorian shuttle. The shuttle pilot was a young Valorian female named Sarah. She kept glancing at Leo with open curiosity during the flight down. "Is it true you pulled him from the ocean?" she asked Jake. "Yes, Princess Selithar had left him to drown." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Many of us think differently now. What she did was wrong. We are beginning to see that." The shuttle descended through the atmosphere and landed at the Imperial spaceport. Jake stepped out with Leo at his side and got his first real look at Valorian civilization. Everything was chrome and crystal, all sharp angles and perfect lines. Valorians moved through the streets with purpose. No wasted motion. No casual conversations. It was efficient but cold, like a beautiful machine with no heart. A security detail met them at the landing pad. Their leader, a tall Valorian male named Kordax, looked at Leo with distrust. "The creature must be restrained during transport to the palace." "Leo doesn't need restraints," Jake said firmly. "He'll behave perfectly fine without them. It is protocol." "Then change the protocol. Leo goes free, or we don't go at all." Kordax considered this, then spoke into a communication device. After a brief conversation, he nodded. "The princess has granted an exception, but if the creature causes any problems, you will be held responsible." "Fair enough," Jake agreed. The transport to the Imperial Palace took 30 minutes. Jake watched the alien city pass by, studying everything. He noticed something interesting. Younger Valorians would stop and stare at Leo with fascination, while older ones looked away with disgust. The palace itself was massive, a towering structure that reached into the clouds. Guards lined every entrance, all armed with advanced weapons. Jake felt small and vulnerable as they entered the grand hall. Princess Selithar waited inside, standing on a raised platform. She looked different than Jake remembered. Her eyes weren't as cold. Something had changed in her during the past 3 months. "Sergeant Jake Morrison," she said formally. "Welcome to Valoria Prime." "Your Highness," Jake replied, not sure what else to say. The princess descended from the platform and approached Leo. The Ravkor watched her carefully, but didn't show any aggression. She stopped a few feet away, staring at the creature she had once owned. "He looks different," she said quietly. "He's happy now," Jake said. "That makes a difference." "Yes," the princess agreed. "I am beginning to understand that." Before they could talk more, massive doors opened at the far end of the hall. An older Valorian entered, wearing robes that marked him as someone extremely important. Everyone in the room immediately bowed. Jake quickly followed suit, and Leo lowered his head as well. Somehow understanding the moment required respect. "You may rise," the Valorian said. His voice carried absolute authority. Princess Selithar spoke quietly to Jake. "That is my father, Emperor Krathmon, ruler of the Valorian Empire." The Emperor approached, studying Jake and Leo with keen interest. "So this is the human who has caused such disruption in my empire. You are smaller than I expected, I apologize if I've caused problems, Your Majesty, Jake said carefully. Problems? Yes. But also something else. Something we have not experienced in 5,000 years of civilization. The Emperor circled around Leo, examining him from every angle. This creature was weak and useless under my daughter's care. Our experts declared it defective. Yet now, it is magnificent. Explain this transformation. Jake chose his words carefully. With respect, Your Majesty. Leo was never defective. He just needed someone who cared about him. Not someone who owned him. Care. The Emperor repeated the word. You speak of emotional attachment. My species abandoned such things long ago. We deemed them inefficient and weak. But humans haven't abandoned emotions, and we're doing pretty well, Jake pointed out. We've survived wars, disasters, and everything the universe threw at us. Maybe emotions aren't as weak as you think. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You dare to lecture me on the flaws of my civilization? Jake felt sweat on his back but didn't back down. I'm not lecturing anyone, Your Majesty. I'm just showing you what's possible when you care about something more than just what it can do for you. The room was silent. Jake wondered if he had just made a fatal mistake. Then, the Emperor did something unexpected. He laughed. It wasn't a warm laugh, but it wasn't cruel either. It was the sound of someone discovering something genuinely surprising. Remarkable. The Emperor said. You stand before the ruler of 100 worlds and speak your truth without fear. Is this also a result of your emotional bonds? Remarkable. The Emperor said. Remarkable. Maybe, Jake admitted. Leo taught me that being brave sometimes means doing the right thing, even when it's dangerous. The Emperor turned to his daughter. Selathar, you wish to test this human's claims through the trial of worth. Do you still believe this is necessary? Ki, Princess Selathar stepped forward. Yes, Father. I believe Sergeant Morrison and his companion represent something we need to understand. I wish to prove to our people that emotional bonds are not weakness, but strength. And if you are wrong? The Emperor asked. Then I will accept the consequences to my honor. The Emperor considered this for a long moment. Very well. The trial will commence in 3 days. Prepare yourself, human. You will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. After the Emperor left, the princess approached Jake and Leo. I must apologize for what I am about to put you through. The trial of worth is not easy. What exactly is it? Jake asked. A test of combat, strategy, and survival. You and Leo will face challenges designed to prove the strength of your bond. If you succeed, it will show my people that emotional connection has value. If you fail, we'll fail together, Jake said, putting his hand on Leo's head. That's what partners do. The princess looked at them for a long moment. I envy what you have created with this creature. I owned him for a year and never knew him. You have known him for months and would die for him. He'd die for me too, Jake said simply. That's the difference. Princess Selathar nodded slowly. Yes, that is exactly the difference. And that is what I must help my people understand. As guards led Jake and Leo to their quarters, Jake felt the weight of what was coming. In 3 days, he would have to prove something to an entire alien civilization. He would have to show them that love and loyalty were more powerful than cold logic. He looked down at Leo, who walked calmly at his side, trusting Jake completely. We can do this, boy, Jake whispered. We've been through worse. Leo made his purring sound, and Jake felt his confidence grow. They were partners, friends, family. Whatever challenges the Valorians threw at them, they would face them together. The sun was setting over Valoria Prime, casting long shadows across the Crystal City. Somewhere in this cold, logical world, Jake and Leo would have to prove that the warmth of friendship was stronger than all the technology and power the Empire could create. 3 days until the trial. 3 days to prepare for the most important test of their lives. The morning of the trial arrived too quickly. Jake woke in his quarters to find Leo already awake, sitting by the window and watching the alien city below. The Ravcor's ears were forward, alert but not afraid. "Big day, buddy," Jake said, walking over to scratch behind Leo's ears. "You ready for this?" Leo turned and nuzzled Jake's hand. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. Lieutenant Nick Stevens, who had traveled with Jake as security escort, arrived with breakfast. "Eat up, Morrison. You'll need your strength. I talked to some Valorian guards last night. They say the trial of worth is brutal." "What kind of challenges are we looking at?" Jake asked. They wouldn't give specifics, but they mentioned combat drones, tactical puzzles, and survival scenarios. The trials are designed to break the bond between handler and creature. They want to see if your connection with Leo is real or just training. Jake fed Leo some of the protein rations he had brought from Earth. The Ravcor ate slowly, never taking his eyes off Jake. "They can throw whatever they want at us. Leo and I have been through fire together. This won't be different." But as they walked toward the Imperial Arena, Jake felt his confidence waver. The arena was enormous, easily holding 50,000 spectators. And every seat was filled with Valorians, all watching silently as Jake and Leo entered. Princess Selethar stood on a royal platform, dressed in ceremonial armor. Next to her sat Emperor Krathmon and several other high-ranking officials. The princess's expression was unreadable, but Jake thought he saw worry in her eyes. A Valorian official approached Jake, carrying some kind of scanning device. "You will be equipped with basic armor and one weapon of your choice. The creature receives nothing. Are these terms acceptable?" "They're fine," Jake said. He chose a plasma blade, a weapon he had trained with extensively. The armor was light but strong, covering his chest and back. The official gestured toward the center of the arena. "Take your position. The first trial will begin shortly." To house. Jake walked to the marked circle with Leo at his side. The crowd was silent, thousands of alien eyes watching their every move. Jake knelt down and looked Leo in the eyes. "Listen to me carefully. Whatever happens out here, stay close. Trust your instincts, and trust me. We're a team. Remember?" Leo pressed his forehead against Jake's, a gesture they had developed over months together. It was their way of saying, "I understand. And I'm with you." A loud horn blared across the arena. The first trial had begun. From 3 different gates, combat drones emerged. They were sleek and fast, armed with energy weapons and moving on multiple legs like mechanical spiders. Jake counted 6 drones total, all converging on his position. "Scatter pattern," Jake shouted. Leo immediately broke left while Jake rolled right. The drones had to split their attention, some following Leo, others tracking Jake. This was exactly what they wanted. Jake activated his plasma blade and engaged the closest drone. The machine was fast, but Jake was faster. He ducked under its weapon arm and slashed upward, cutting through critical systems. The drone sparked and fell. Across the arena, Leo was using his speed and agility to keep 3 drones occupied. He dodged their weapons fire, darting between obstacles and never staying still long enough for them to get a clean shot. Jake took down a second drone, then glanced at Leo. The Ravcor was getting tired, his movements slightly slower. The remaining drones were learning his patterns, adjusting their tactics. "Leo, pattern 7, Jake called out. It was a maneuver they had practiced hundreds of times. Leo immediately broke into a sprint directly toward Jake's position. The drones followed, focusing all their fire on the running Ravcor. Jake's heart pounded as he watched Leo dodge energy blasts, some coming within inches of hitting him. At the last second, Leo jumped, sailing over Jake's head. Jake dropped to one knee and swung his blade in a wide arc. 2 drones, 2 focused on Leo, ran right into his weapon. They crashed to the ground, destroyed. The final drone tried to retreat, but Leo landed behind it and pounced. His powerful jaws clamped onto the machine's core processing unit. Metal crunched, and the drone went dark. The crowd remained silent, but Jake could feel their attention intensify. This was just the beginning. The horn sounded again. The second trial was about to start. The arena floor shifted and changed, mechanical walls rising from the ground to create a massive maze. Jake and Leo were separated by a wall that appeared between them. Jake could hear Leo on the other side, making distressed sounds. The Valorian official's voice echoed across the arena. The second trial tests trust. The handler is blindfolded. The creature must guide him through the maze. There are traps throughout. Failure results in injury or death. Guards approached Jake and secured a thick blindfold over his eyes. Suddenly, he was in complete darkness. He could hear Leo somewhere nearby but couldn't see anything. "Leo," Jake called out. "I need you, buddy. I can't see." Leo barked, a sound Jake had learned to interpret. The Ravkor was moving through the maze, trying to find a way to Jake. Jake heard something else too. A low humming sound. The traps were activating. He had to move, but every step could be dangerous. "Leo, which way?" Jake shouted. "Give me something to follow." Leo barked again, this time from Jake's left. Jake carefully moved in that direction, his hands outstretched to feel for walls. His foot hit something, and he heard a click. A trap. Jake threw himself backward just as an energy blade swung through the space where his head had been a second earlier. His heart pounded wildly. "Leo, I almost died. I need better directions." Over the following minutes, Jake and Leo developed a system. Leo would make different sounds. Short barks meant move forward, long howls meant stop, and a specific purring noise meant turn right. It was crude, but it worked. Jake moved through the maze slowly, trusting Leo completely. Every time a trap activated, Leo's warning came just in time. When Jake reached a dead end, Leo would guide him back and down a different path. The Valorian crowd began to murmur. This level of coordination wasn't supposed to be possible. The trial was designed to fail, to show that without sight, a human couldn't trust an animal. But Jake wasn't treating Leo like an animal. He was treating him like a partner who knew things Jake didn't. And Leo wasn't just following training. He was protecting someone he loved. After 20 agonizing minutes, Jake's hand touched something different. Cool metal with a specific texture. The exit gate. "Is this it, Leo?" Jake called. "Did we make it?" Leo's joyful bark answered him. Guards removed the blindfold, and Jake saw Leo on the other side of the gate, tail wagging furiously. They had passed the second trial, but Jake noticed something in the crowd's reaction. The older Valorians looked disturbed, almost angry. The younger ones seemed amazed, excited. Princess Selathar was leaning forward on her throne, completely focused. The Emperor raised his hand, and silence fell across the arena. One trial remains. The trial of sacrifice. This is the final test. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the way the Emperor said sacrifice sounded ominous. The arena changed again. All the walls retracted, leaving open space. Then, 3 massive combat drones emerged, bigger and more heavily armed than any Jake had seen before. These weren't meant to test him. These were meant to kill him. The official's voice was emotionless. "The final trial is simple. Survive for 10 minutes, or eliminate all 3 drones. You may surrender at any time. But surrender means failure." The drones powered up, their weapons glowing with barely contained energy. Jake gripped his plasma blade, knowing it wouldn't be enough. These machines were military-grade, designed to destroy armored vehicles. The horn sounded, and the drones attacked. Jake and Leo moved together, dodging the initial barrage of weapons fire. The ground exploded where they had been standing a moment before. These drones weren't playing around. "Evasive pattern," Jake yelled, and they split up again. But this time, the drones were smarter. 2 focused on Jake, and one went after Leo. Jake ran, rolled, and ducked behind debris from the previous trials. The drones pursued relentlessly, their weapons tearing through his cover like paper. His armor took a glancing hit, and pain shot through his side. Across the arena, Leo was in trouble. The drone targeting him was bigger and slower, but its weapons had more range. Leo couldn't get close enough to attack without getting hit. Jake made a decision. He changed direction, running toward the drone, attacking Leo instead of away from his own pursuers. It was insane, but he couldn't watch Leo die. "Hey, over here!" Jake screamed at the drone. He waved his arms, making himself an obvious target. The drone's sensors locked onto Jake. It switched targets, its weapons charging for a killing shot. Jake was too far away to dodge. He braced himself for the impact. Then Leo slammed into Jake from the side, knocking him out of the way. The energy blast hit Leo instead, burning through his golden fur and into his shoulder. The Ravkor cried out in pain but didn't retreat. "Leo, no." Jake scrambled to his feet. His friend was hurt, protecting him, just like always. But something changed in that moment. Jake's fear transformed into rage. These machines had hurt his friend, his family. Nothing else mattered. With a roar, Jake charged the nearest drone. He ducked under its weapon's arm, using his smaller size to his advantage. His plasma blade found a weak point in the armor plating, and he drove it deep into the machine's core. The drone exploded, throwing Jake backward. The other two drones refocused on Jake. But now Leo was behind them, injured but still fighting. The Ravkor pounced on one drone, his massive weight crushing its leg mechanisms. The machine toppled, and Leo's jaws found its power cell. Jake faced the final drone alone. His armor was damaged, his weapon was dying, and his body ached from multiple impacts. But he refused to surrender. The drone fired, and Jake dodged left. It fired again, and Jake rolled right. He was getting slower, and the drone knew it. The next shot would finish him. Then he heard Leo's roar. Despite his injury, the Ravkor was charging toward the drone from behind. Leo leaped onto the machine's back, his weight causing it to stumble. Jake saw his chance. He ran forward and thrust his blade into the drone's forward sensor array, blinding it. The machine thrashed wildly, trying to throw Leo off. Jake stabbed again and again, finding weak points through desperation and luck. Finally, the drone collapsed, sparking and smoking. The arena fell silent. Jake immediately ran to Leo. The Ravkor was lying on his side, breathing hard. The burn on his shoulder looked bad, and Jake could see blood matting his golden fur. "Medic!" Jake shouted. "I need medical help now." Valorian medical teams rushed into the arena, but Jake barely noticed them. He knelt next to Leo, cradling the Ravkor's massive head in his lap. Tears ran down Jake's face, mixing with blood and sweat. "You saved me again," Jake whispered. "You stupid, brave, beautiful idiot. Why did you do that?" Leo's blue eyes looked up at Jake with perfect trust and understanding. Even in pain, even injured, the Ravkor was content because Jake was safe. The medical teams worked quickly, applying alien technology to Leo's wounds. Princess Selathar descended from her platform and approached them. "The trial is over," she said quietly. "You have proven everything I hoped to prove. You may rest now." But Jake barely heard her. All his attention was on Leo, on his friend, on his family. The Ravkor's breathing was steadying, the medical treatments working. He would survive. As the medical team carefully lifted Leo onto a transport platform, Jake walked beside him, holding his paw. The crowd finally made noise, but Jake didn't care if they were cheering or jeering. He had passed their trials. But more importantly, he had kept his promise to Leo. They had faced impossible odds together, and they had survived. Together, always together. Jake sat beside Leo's medical bed, in the Imperial Hospital, watching his friend sleep. 3 days had passed since the trial, and Leo's injuries were healing remarkably well. The Valorian doctors had told Jake their technology could repair almost any damage. But seeing Leo sleeping peacefully made Jake's worry finally ease. The Ravkor's breathing was deep and steady. The burn on his shoulder was covered with some kind of healing gel that glowed faintly blue. According to the doctors, there wouldn't even be a scar when the treatment was complete. "You're going to be okay," Jake whispered, running his hand gently through Leo's mane. "We made it through. We're safe now." A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Princess Selathar entered quietly, dressed in simple robes instead of her usual royal armor. She looked different. More relaxed somehow. "How is he?" she asked, approaching the medical bed. "The doctors say he'll make a full recovery in a few more days," Jake replied. "Your medical technology is impressive. It is the least we owe him." The princess sat down in a chair across from Jake. "I have been thinking much about what happened in the arena, about what you both proved." "Changing. We just survived," Jake said. "That's what we do." "No," the princess said firmly. "You did far more than survive. You showed my people something we had forgotten, something we thought we had evolved past." She was quiet for a moment, watching Leo sleep. "When I owned this creature, I saw him as a trophy, a rare beast to display at parties and ceremonies. I fed him, trained him, but never once did I consider his feelings or needs. When he fell into the ocean, my first thought was that he had embarrassed me by being clumsy. And now?" Jake asked. "Now I understand I was the one who should have been embarrassed. I abandoned a loyal creature to death simply because he was no longer useful to me. That is not strength. That is cruelty." She looked at Jake directly. "You taught me that. You and Leo together." Before Jake could respond, Emperor Krathmon entered the room with several advisors. Jake stood immediately, but the Emperor waved him back to his seat. "Remain seated, Sergeant Morrison. You have earned the right to rest." The Emperor approached Leo's bed, studying the sleeping Ravkor carefully. "My physicians tell me the creature fought even while injured. Is this true?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake confirmed. "Leo took a hit meant for me, then kept fighting anyway. He wouldn't stop until all the threats were eliminated. Remarkable." The Emperor turned to his advisors. "Leave us. I wish to speak with the human privately." "Emperor." After the advisors left, the Emperor sat down with a heavy sigh. "I am 800 years old, Sergeant Morrison. I have ruled this empire for 3 centuries. In all that time, I believed our way was the only correct path. We eliminated emotional attachment from our culture because it seemed inefficient and weak. But Your Majesty, you're starting to change your mind?" Jake asked carefully. "Your species has been in space for less than 200 years. Yet you have accomplished what should be impossible. You form alliances with species that hate each other. You inspire loyalty in beings that have no logical reason to serve you. And you survive threats that should destroy you." The Emperor gestured at Leo. "This creature is proof of your greatest strength. You did not conquer him or control him. You befriended him. And that friendship made both of you stronger than you could ever be alone." Princess Selathar spoke up. "Father, I have been corresponding with reform groups across the Empire. After the trial, millions of young Valorians have been discussing the concept of emotional bonds. They want to learn what we have lost, which is why I am making a decision that will change our empire forever." The Emperor stood, his posture formal and commanding. "Sergeant Jake Morrison, I request that you remain on Valoria Prime as an advisor to our academies. We wish to establish a new program, teaching our people about empathy, loyalty, and emotional connection. You and your companion would be perfect teachers." Jake was stunned. "Your Majesty, I'm just a soldier. I don't know anything about teaching or running programs." "You know about bonds," Princess Selathar said. "You know about love and sacrifice. These are exactly the things we need to learn." Jake looked at Leo, still sleeping peacefully. Can I think about it? I need to contact my commanders back home. Of course. The Emperor agreed. Take all the time you need. But know that you would be doing something important here. You would be helping reshape an entire civilization. After they left, Jake sat in silence for a long time. Leo woke up slowly, his blue eyes blinking open. When he saw Jake, the Ravkor's tail started wagging weakly. Hey there, buddy, Jake said softly. How are you feeling? Leo made his purring sound and tried to sit up. Jake helped him, careful of the healing shoulder. The Ravkor leaned against Jake, content just to be close to his human. They want us to stay here for a while, Jake told Leo. They want us to teach aliens about friendship and loyalty. What do you think? Leo looked at Jake with those intelligent eyes, and Jake could swear the Ravkor understood every word. Leo nuzzled Jake's hand, which Jake interpreted as agreement. Over the next few days, Jake spoke with his commanders via long-range communication. After much discussion, they agreed to assign him to the Valorian Empire for 2 years. The mission was classified as cultural exchange, but everyone understood its true importance. Lieutenant Nick Stevens was excited. You're basically becoming an ambassador, Morrison. Earth's first friendship ambassador to an alien empire. I'm still just a soldier, Jake insisted. A soldier who changed an empire by rescuing a pet, Nick pointed out. That's pretty significant. The program began small. Princess Selathar established 3 academy centers across Valoria Prime. Young Valorians who wanted to learn about emotional bonds could enroll voluntarily. The response was overwhelming. Within a month, thousands had applied. Jake worked with human advisors like Amy Chen, a psychologist, and Chris Parker, an animal behavior specialist. Together, they developed a curriculum that taught Valorians about empathy, emotional intelligence, and interspecies bonding. The most successful part of the program involved pairing students with rescued animals from across the galaxy. Under supervision, young Valorians learned to care for creatures, to understand their needs, and eventually to form genuine emotional connections with them. Jake watched as a young Valorian named Trennick struggled to bond with a small reptilian creature called a skrit. The student kept trying to command the animal, to control it through dominance. That's not how this works, Jake explained patiently. You're not trying to make it obey you. You're trying to make it trust you. But trust is inefficient, Trennick argued. Obedience is faster and more reliable. Jake called Leo over. The massive Ravkor approached calmly, settling down next to Jake. Leo doesn't obey me because I force him to. He listens because he wants to, because he knows I care about him, and he cares about me. That bond makes us stronger than any amount of forced obedience ever could. To demonstrate, Jake walked away from Leo and went to the other side of the room. Leo, stay, he called out. Leo remained perfectly still, not moving a muscle even though Jake was far away. Then Jake pretended to trip and fall. Immediately, Leo was in motion, racing across the room to check on Jake. The Ravkor ignored the stay command because something more important had overridden it. Concern for his friend. You see? Jake said, standing up and hugging Leo. He didn't obey the command. But that's good. Because his love for me was stronger than his obedience. That's what real loyalty looks like. Trennick stared at them for a long moment, then looked at his own small creature with new understanding. Over the following weeks, Jake watched as Trennick transformed. The young Valorian learned patience, learned to read the skrit's body language, learned to respond to its needs, and eventually, the skrit began to seek out Trennick's company, to show affection, to trust. The changes rippled across Valorian society. Students who graduated from the program returned to their families changed. They showed more empathy, more emotional awareness, more connection to others. Some older Valorians resisted, calling it a corruption of their culture. Leo became famous across the empire. He was no longer seen as a failed pet, but as a symbol of transformation and hope. Artists created sculptures of him. Writers told his story. Children drew pictures of the magnificent Ravkor, who had taught their world about love. 6 months into the program, Jake received a message from Ambassador Krator. The older Valorian, who had been one of the first to recognize the value of pack bonding, requested a meeting. They met in a garden, one of the few green spaces on Valoria Prime. Krator looked older but somehow more peaceful than before. "I wanted to thank you, Sergeant Morrison," Krator said. "My granddaughter enrolled in your program. She bonded with a small flying creature called a Vex. For the first time in her life, I saw her smile with genuine joy. Not calculated pleasure, but real happiness." "I'm glad I could help," Jake said. "You have done more than help. You have given us back something precious that we thought was lost forever." Krator paused. "I am old, and I remember the stories from before our great Reformation. My ancestors spoke of a time when Valorians felt deeply, loved freely, and connected with all living things. We thought we became stronger by cutting away those feelings. But we only became hollow." Leo approached and sat down between Jake and Krator. The old Valorian reached out hesitantly, then ran his hand through Leo's mane. Leo leaned into the touch, accepting the affection. "He is magnificent," Krator whispered, "and you are fortunate to have found him. Or, perhaps, he found you." "I think we found each other," Jake said with a smile. As the first year passed, the program expanded. More academies opened. More species were brought in for bonding programs. The Valorian Empire began reaching out to other civilizations, curious about how they formed emotional connections. Princess Selethar became a leading voice for reform. She appeared regularly on Valorian communication networks, speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence and empathy. Some traditionalists called her a traitor to their culture, but most young Valorians saw her as a hero. One evening, Jake and Leo walked through the streets of the capital city. It was something they did regularly now. No longer needing guards or escorts, Valorians would stop to greet them, to pet Leo, to thank Jake for what he had taught them. A young Valorian child approached, holding a small furry creature in her arms. "Mr. Jake," the child said shyly, "I wanted you to meet my friend. Her name is Pip." Jake knelt down to look at the creature, a rabbit-like animal with long ears and soft fur. "Hello, Pip. You're very cute. She was scared when I first got her," the child explained, "but I remembered what you said about patience and love. Now, we're best friends." "That's wonderful," Jake said warmly. "You're taking good care of her." After the child left, Leo nudged Jake's hand. The Ravkor looked up at him with those bright blue eyes, and Jake understood what he was saying without words. They had made a difference. They had changed things. As Jake's 2-year assignment approached its end, he had a decision to make. He could return to Earth and resume his military career, or he could request an extension and continue the work here. He discussed it with Leo during their evening walks. "What do you think, buddy? Should we stay longer? Or should we go home?" Leo's answer was always the same. A gentle nuzzle and that contented purr. As long as they were together, Leo didn't care where they were. In the end, Jake requested a 1-year extension. The work wasn't finished, and he felt responsible for seeing it through. On the day marking 1 year since the trial, a ceremony was held in the Imperial Arena where Jake and Leo had proven their bond. But this time, instead of combat, it was a celebration. Thousands of Valorians attended, along with representatives from dozens of allied species. Emperor Krothmon gave a speech that was broadcast across the Empire. "Today we honor Sergeant Jake Morrison and his companion Leo. They came to our world as strangers, and through one act of compassion, they showed us what we had lost. They reminded us that strength comes not just from logic and efficiency, but from love and loyalty." Princess Selethar presented Jake with a medal, an honor rarely given to non-Valorians. But the real reward came when hundreds of Academy graduates paraded through the arena with their bonded companions. Creatures of every size and species, walking peacefully beside their Valorian partners. All of them were happy, all of them were loved, and all of them represented the change that Jake and Leo had started. After the ceremony, Jake and Leo stood alone on a balcony, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the chrome towers in shades of gold and orange. "We did it," Jake said quietly. "We actually changed an entire world." Leo leaned against him. Warm, and solid, and constant. Jake thought back to that night on Aqualus Prime, when he had dove into the ocean to save a drowning creature. He had acted on instinct, never imagining where that decision would lead. He had saved one life, and in doing so, had affected millions. In the distance, Jake could see young Valorians walking through parks with their animal companions. He could see families teaching their children about empathy and kindness. He could see a civilization rediscovering its heart. And at the center of it all was a simple truth. Love was stronger than any weapon, more powerful than any technology, and more enduring than any empire. Jake scratched Leo behind the ears, and the Ravcor made his happy purring sound. They would stay on Valoria Prime for one more year, continuing their work, and then they would return to Earth, carrying with them the knowledge that one human and one alien creature had changed the galaxy forever. Because that's what humanity did best. They didn't conquer through force or control, through fear. They connected through compassion, they inspired through kindness, and they survived through the simple, powerful act of caring for others. The universe was a vast and often hostile place. But as long as there were beings like Jake and Leo, willing to risk everything for each other, there would always be hope. The sun finished setting, and stars began to appear in the alien sky. Jake and Leo stayed on the balcony for a while longer, two friends watching the night arrive, content in each other's company. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. But tonight, they could rest, knowing they had done something that would echo through history. They had proven that love was not a weakness but the greatest strength of all, and the universe would never be quite the same again.